Chris Perry here with Voyant Training and Support, and in the following video I'll be presenting to you some of the changes that we've made recently to the way events are handled in AdviserGo. Here we have a client case that we've just begun for John and Julia Campbell. In it, John is age 38, his wife Julia is 33, their son Kevin is 13, and Martina, their daughter, is 8. Let's go to the timeline. Here on the timeline, you'll find a series of default events based on the information that we've entered about the client so far. We have a start event marking the beginning of the planning timeline. We also have, for clients that have yet to retire, default retirement events. Here's John's default retirement event, which is set at age 65, but this can be easily changed by simply moving the slider up or down the timeline. Here, if we wish to reposition his retirement to age 60, simply drag and drop the retirement event to that age and year in the timeline, or you also have the option to click the drop down and select the desired age or the desired year. Click Save, and that change will be saved automatically to the plan. You also have, and this is new to the software, the ability to reposition events on the timeline with a simple drag and drop. So if we wish to show Julia retiring in the same year as John, we can simply click on the icon for her retirement and holding down the button, drag and drop her retirement event into the desired year of the plan. Notice while I move her retirement event that we see her future ages shown below the event icon that's being moved. Plus, we have position in the timeline a marker showing where her retirement event was originally positioned. So moving it into the same year in which John's retiring, we release the button and our change is automatically saved. Also in the planning timeline are mortality events, which indicate your client's life expectancy. By default, the software will assume that clients live to age 90. However, this can be easily changed based on your discussion with your clients. Here, for example, we have John's mortality set at age 90, but we can change that assumption with a simple drag and drop of his mortality event up or down the timeline. In this case, Julia, her mortality is set to age 90 as well, and also marks the end of the planning timeline. If we wish to extend her life expectancy past the visible timeline, click her mortality event and use the slider to move her life expectancy up to age 100. You can also use the age selection drop-down here to select the age of her mortality. Click Save, and you'll find that the planning timeline redraws automatically with an extended timeline noting her longer life expectancy. We can also then move her mortality event back into place if we like with a simple drag and drop, and the timeline will redraw automatically. The timeline now also has special functionality to prevent errors from occurring in the plan. For example, the retirement events here, as well as the mortality events here, work as bookends for the retirement stage. As a rule, one cannot take an event that's used as the ending bookend for a given stage and move it into a stage that precedes it, here the pre-retirement stage. So while moving John's mortality event, you can see that the software will automatically highlight the area within which this event could be repositioned. In gray is the area the event cannot be moved into the pre-retirement stage. If I attempted to move John's mortality event over into pre-retirement, you'll see that the event cannot be positioned in that section of the timeline. And if I were to release that event, you'll see an error message stating that mortality cannot be moved past age 60. The event then in turn snaps back into place. There are now 3 ways of adding events to the timeline. As before, you can click the plus button, bottom right, select Event, and the event creation dialog will appear before you. In this case, let's say that John wishes to buy a Porsche, and he wishes to do so at age 55. Select the owner of the event, give the event a name, and select an icon for it. You can either reposition the event on the timeline by selecting the age drop-down and selecting that future age of 55, or you can use a slider to move the event to the appropriate position on the timeline, here at age 55. Let's click Save, and you'll see that the event, buy a Porsche, is now on the timeline and saved into your plan. You also have the option now, and this is new, to simply double-click on the bar or year of the chart in which you wish to add an event. Let's say, for example, following retirement, right here, that they wish to begin seeing the world, traveling the globe. We can simply click on that bar of the chart. You'll see already positioned in the year after their retirement is this new event. We can select an appropriate icon, give the event a name, travel the globe, and click Save to add it to the timeline. Events can also be added as needed as you enter items into the plan, such as goals and expenses. In this case, let's add a milestone, in other words, a one-off goal, to plan for Martina's future wedding. We'll select Martina as the owner of this goal, deselecting her parents, John and Julia. We'll give the goal a name. We'll enter the current estimated cost for wedding, that is the amount that they wish to budget for the wedding. We'll work out the inflationary difference between now and the time she actually gets married. Click Next, and it's here that we can either select an existing event for the timeline or add a new event for purposes of scheduling her future wedding. So to add a new event, double-click on any bar of the chart, select the appropriate event icon that you wish to use, give the event a name. You can then reposition the event anywhere on the timeline, up or down the timeline, and as you've seen before, we'll see Martina's future ages, she being the owner of this goal, as we move the event up or down the timeline. So with a drag and drop, let's move her event up to age 25 and release it. Then set this event as the start event for this goal. We now click Next, and we can review the information that we've entered. So we have a new goal, Martina's wedding, in the amount of $45,000 in today's money. And this goal will be occurring at this new event that we've just added called Martina's wedding. Click the check mark, and both the goal and the event are now in the plan. The goal you can see here in the timeline. You'll notice that it's been added to a list of goals bottom left, and whenever a goal is selected, we have special highlighting to show quite explicitly where the goal will be occurring in the planning timeline. As you add items to a plan, you can also select events already on the timeline, or in some cases, such as education goals and incomes, the software will create default events for you, which you can either choose to use or discard. Let's take, for example, education expenses. We'll add, for Kevin, an education goal to plan for his future university years. We'll select Kevin as the owner. We'll give the goal a name. We'll enter an estimated cost for this goal, $25,000 per annum. Clicking Next, you'll see that the software has created for us a pair of default events. Here we have Kevin beginning university at age 18. Of course, he could begin earlier or later. And he graduates after 4 years when he turns 22. You'll have a message up here at top asking whether you'd like to use these events for Kevin's university years. If you click No, the default events will go away, and you can either select existing events on the timeline or add new ones as you see fit. If we wish to change the timing of these default events, it's simply a matter of dragging the start or end event up or down the timeline. So for example, if Kevin were to be going to school on a 3-year program, we could take his graduation and just drag it 1 year earlier in the timeline. Or if he's on a 6-year program, we could drag the event outwards to accommodate a 6-year period of university. Let's move this back into place. Let's click Yes. And we have our goals. Click Next. And click the check mark once we've reviewed the information about the goal. Now, of course, we can change the timing of these events at any point after we've created the goal by clicking the check mark here. And you'll see now that Kevin has a goal, has a pair of events marking when his goal to attend university begins and ends in the timeline. Also, if we select Kevin's uni years, you'll see highlighted very clearly in the timeline the period over which this goal will be active in the plan. Let's add another pair of events, in this case, the education goal for Martina's university years. We'll call this Martina's University years. We'll enter an estimated cost. Click Next. And as we saw with Kevin, we have default college start and college end events, but these are, of course, color-coded differently in gold for Martina, as are all of Martina's events. We'll accept these defaults. Click Next. We have a review. Click the check mark. And we see now that we have Martina's university years as well. So you can very clearly and very easily demonstrate to your clients the periods in the timeline where special goals are being met. Here by highlighting Kevin's uni years, and here by highlighting Martina's university years as well. Notice that we have here an event already added to the timeline marking when John and Julia wish to begin their world travel in the year following their retirement. We can tie that existing event to a new goal by clicking the plus sign, bottom right, and when adding a new retirement goal, which is to see the world owned by John and Julia, this is a leisure goal, so they will budget in today's money $20,000 per annum for this. And here we can select on the timeline either existing events or, as you've seen, add new ones. Here we have an event already in the timeline, which is the Travel the Globe event, so you can either select that event or, if you like, drag and drop the event into the Goal Starts box up above the timeline. We can also add an event to mark when this particular goal is going to end. So for example, if they don't wish to travel a globe until the very end of the planning timeline, they can select any bar of the chart. So let's say when John turns 80, they might wish to end their world travel, slowing down. So by clicking that bar of the chart, we have the option to add a new event as we're setting up this particular goal, and we set this as, in this case, the end event for the goal. So now we have highlighted in the timeline when the goal, traveling the world, will start and end. We can of course still move these events should we need to. So if we decide to end that at age 75, it's simply with a drag and drop we can do so. Click continue to accept that change. Click the next button and we have our review. Again, we can change the timing of these goals at any point even after we've entered this into the plan. Click the check mark and now we have a goal, see the world, that's very clearly highlighted for us here on the timeline. Notice too that there's an accessibility option when setting the timing on items in a plan. This option is found top right and can be toggled on and off by clicking the accessibility button. Here in the accessibility view, you'll have a list of events that can be used to set the start and end of a given item in the plan. To switch back to the regular view, click the adjacent button. We now have a variety of events in the planning timeline, all color-coded based on ownership. John's events are noted in green, Julia's events are noted in turquoise, Kevin's events are noted in magenta, and Martina's in gold. We have the ability for purposes of presentation to filter events based on owners. So if we wanted to present a view of the events that only pertain to John, we can deselect Julia, Kevin, and Martina, and we have a view of the timeline that only shows John's future events. Likewise for Julia, if we deselect then John, leaving Kevin and Martina deselected, and doing the same for Kevin, these are Kevin's future events and Martina's future events. Reselecting all, and you have a full view of the timeline. Bottom right, you can highlight certain events by mousing over them. Here's where Kevin's college begins and Kevin's college ends. Here's where John wishes to buy a Porsche. Here's where John is retiring. Here's where they intend to begin traveling the globe. And here's where they intend to end their world travel. You can, as we've demonstrated before, highlight certain goals by which the timeline will clearly show the period over which the goal is active in the plan. So we have Martina's wedding, we have Kevin's uni years, and Martina's uni years, and the period over which they intend to travel the globe. Events in the timeline that are linked to items within a plan have special notation to alert you to that fact. If, for example, we select the event Martina's wedding, we can see here that the event is linked to two items in the plan, a goal and an expense. We can click to see what these items actually are. If we go to edit a given goal, or for that matter any item in the plan, let's say again Martina's wedding, here if we go to change the timing of the wedding, an alert will pop up stating that changing the timing of this particular event will affect, again, two items in the plan, giving us the option either to cancel or to proceed. The items shown are clickable links. So you could jump to a given item and link them to an alternative event if necessary. Here we'll change the timing of the purchase of his dream car, his Porsche, from Julia's retirement to an event that we've already added to the timeline, which is buy a Porsche. Clicking Save, and now that particular expense will no longer be associated with Julia's retirement. Events can also be edited while viewing the Let's See charts and on the dashboard. In either case, you'll find the event markers running along the axis of the timeline. To edit a given event, click its marker, click the Edit pencil, and this will bring up the Edit Event dialog, which you've seen before on the timeline screen. It's here that you can change the timing with a simple drag and drop, or by selecting a year or a future age. You can change the ownership, you can change the name of the event and its icon, all here on the dashboard or on the Let's See chart. The software also has safeguards in place that will prevent events from being deleted that have items linked in the plan. For example, if we select the event buy a Porsche, you'll see that here in the details, this event has a linked item, which is an expense. If we click on that linked item, we'll see that there is an expense in the plan, a milestone, called Buy a Dream Car. In order to be allowed to delete Buy a Porsche as an event so as not to orphan this expense in the plan, we would need to either delete its linked expense or assign to that linked expense a different event for its timing. So if we click Buy a Dream Car, we have the option to either change its timing to use a different event or delete the linked item, the expense, Buy a Dream Car. And once that linked item is deleted from the plan, then we can go back to the timeline and delete the event Buy a Porsche. We'd be allowed to do so since it has no items linked to it. This concludes our presentation on recent changes to events in AdviserGo. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us at support@planwithvoyant.com. And thank you for watching.